Let's sharp.
Huh?
So are you.
What? Why?
What?
No.
What? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Bad story. Bad.
Wait a minute.
Dang it, Corey, this video is gonna be
Sharp like
demonetized.
a knife. Like I can do that. I'm sharp.
Don't do
Okay,
it.
anyway.
You ever just
Sharpen the brain.
Okay.
Sharpen the saw.
3 weeks ago, we last talked about Europe. World War I had just happened. The war to end all wars had just happened. Okay. After World War I, pretty much Europe has been dismantled. The empires of the Ottomans, the Germans, the Austrian-Hungarians, and the Russian empires have all collapsed. In its place, you're having a total new map of Europe with Poland, Hungary, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, okay, Turkey, all being created. Okay, now, work.
No.
I'm not very sharp.
Wasn't that one?
There we go. Now, after World War I, there's a massive struggle in the world, not just in Europe, but in the world, to try to maintain peace. And keep the spread of democracy. Okay, welcome back. Okay. What's up? Which one? Test. 55 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so Europe and really the world is struggling to maintain peace. Okay, remember we have talked about the hardest type of government to install anywhere is democracy. And in Eastern Europe, in a place that's never had it, it's tougher. We have talked about that over and over and over again. Democracy or democratic republics, it's really hard to establish. Okay, going from a country that has, the government has controlled everything to now having a form of government where people have a say, that's radical change. We saw this early on in the year. We're going to see this now after World War I, and we're going to see it again after the fall of the Soviet Union. I remember when I was a wee little lad, okay, and the wall fell and eventually the Soviet Union fell. Everyone said, yes, we have American democracy now. Yes, change is going to happen like that. Okay, and literally people thought, wow, this is awesome. Change is going to happen. We're going to be rich. Everything's going to be great. After a year, people are like, well, where's the change? Why hasn't it fully changed? And then people are going to want to go back to the way that they knew. Okay, so you're going to see that. Now, when things don't change, when things don't get better, when there's still tension between the different ethnic groups, when there's tension between the different groups, when there's economic problems, when there's social problems, people are going to be like, you know what? I'm willing to give up some of my rights to bring stability to my country. Without stability, you don't have a good economic system. Okay, so to better the country, to better life, I'm willing to give up some of my rights. This is why the Germans look toward Hitler, the Italians look to Mussolini, the Russians look to Stalin, the Spanish look to Franco, the Yugoslavians look for Tito. People start looking toward totalitarian governments to bring stability and peace to their country. knowing that some of their rights will go away. They're okay with it. Last but not least, a lot of these totalitarian governments, these leaders, will be masters at manipulation. They're going to use mass media, mass communications to get people to follow them. Radio, TV, movies, newspaper will all be used. Dramatic speeches. If you've ever watched Hitler's speech, okay, first off, he had these coliseums built specifically for his speeches. Okay, and you notice when he speaks, he says things several times. He repeats things several times. Because the more a lie is repeated, the more people will believe it. He also has the people chant for him. Chant things. He'll tell people, something, and they'll respond. And he elicits that response. Because the more the people say it, the more they'll believe it. These totalitarian rulers will also use the dramatics, dramatic hand movements, dramatic poses, okay, to show strength and power. They're going to be manipulators of mass media. Yes, Skylar?
I was going to say, like with Martin Luther King, I had a dream speech. That's another example of repeating yourself over and over again. Like, is it kind of similar?
I don't remember in his speech repeating several things.
I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream.
Okay.
Isn't that kind of like give people hope?
I understand what you're saying. Yes. Okay. I can see where you're going with that. Yes.
Kind of similar like the way they structure.
Right, but he's not a totalitarian leader.
Oh,
Yeah. So I can see where you're going with that. Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Moto.
Now,
Money.
after World War I, the only country that really is enforcing the Treaty of Versailles, the only country really enforcing the Treaty of Versailles is France. Germany, Germany is trying to do its thing. Germany thinks the Treaty of Versailles was too tough. England kind of also believes that maybe the Treaty of Versailles went too far. Plus, they were kind of somewhat isolationist. They wanted to avoid conflict at all costs. America was an isolationist. They had the America First policy. That if you're not American, you're bad. Okay. Now, so that left only France to really flex their muscles and enforce the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, which we know how France is. France is not going to be doing so well with that. Okay. League of Nations, which was created after World War I, eventually every country in the world joined with the exception of the United States. Okay, the United States is the world power, it's the superpower. We are the leading producer of items. We produce 90, think about this, put this in your head. The United States, at this time, produced 90% of the world's products. We produce 95% of the oil in the world at the time. Plus, we were a powerhouse because of industrialization. If the world superpower is not in the League of Nations is probably not that strong. Now, minority groups in Eastern Europe, okay, are going to feel like they're ostracized. A lot of these countries were created to a lot of these countries in Eastern Europe were created to kind of to have people of the same culture together. Okay, but there's always going to be some minority groups. Okay, there's always going to be some minority groups. And a lot of these minority groups in Poland, in Czechoslovakia, in Hungary and such, they're going to be ostracized. They're not going to have the same rights as the majority. And that causes tension.
The U.S. didn't join the League of Nations because, like, what happened with like Woodrow Wilson in Congress, right?
Yeah. Woodrow Wilson and the Congress. There was a movement then where the Congress wanted to basically be isolationists.
Yeah.
That the United States shouldn't get involved unless
Wasn't there like difference in like parties?
Yeah, Wilson was a Democrat and Congress were Republicans. Okay. Now, another good thing that happens after World War I, though, is women's rights. You know, because of World War I, when the men were off fighting the war, women are like, hey, we're going to do all the jobs the men did. So after World War I, women are like, hey, we did it just fine. We're equals to men. Okay, give us more rights. And after World War I, a lot of countries in Europe gave women the right to vote. Okay. But when we look at the political spectrum, you have people on both ends of the political spectrum that are not really for democracy. The hardcore conservatives, who are your upper class, they don't want to share power with the rest of the population. And on the other side, you have the hardcore socialists, which are leading toward communists. They believe democracy is just an aspect of capitalism, where people with money are going to have power. So you have the extremes on both ends of the political spectrum, not necessarily wanting democracy. Questions? Okay. Oh no.
Yeah, boom.
Boom.
Oh, we're good. Then,
We're good.
Yeah. Boom.
Okay, this is just to show you again the map of the world. These are all the leaders these are all members of the League of Nations, except for the ones in blue.
Mongolia.
Okay. So most countries are in the League of Nations, with the exception of Saudi Arabia and the United States.
Not Mongolia.
Yes, and Mongolia.
I need the
Okay.
What about Antarctica?
Now, war is great for the economy. Leading up to war, countries are buying items in preparation for war.